So today we're going to talk about FRQ 6, which is the tradition or continuity and change skill for the AP Art History exam. Now the tradition change FRQ can be a tricky one, but if you understand how to look at the question, it's not as bad as we think. So first thing, it's going to give you an image from the 250. From this image, you're going to have to explain how the artwork uses traditions and then breaks those traditions. Usually it'll tell you and kind of specify traditions of what or changes of what. So is it from the past in general? Is it from traditions of the culture? Is it from traditions of just artistic norms? It'll set the stage for you so that you can say it's doing these things the same as the past, and then it changes these things from the past. That's the big key idea with continuity change or tradition and change. What is it doing the same? What is it doing different? This is a short FRQ, so you're advised to spend about 15 minutes and no more on this guy. So this one can be tricky. This skill is kind of difficult, but because it's from the 250, you can also just sort of yap about the piece and hope for the best. But the big thing to make sure you do is to follow the prompt. So look at what the questions are asking and do your best to answer those questions. When you are answering the questions, I always advise you guys to restate the questions as sentence starters to help you keep track of your task points and stay focused on the prompt. It's really easy, especially in this skill, I've noticed, to start just pivoting towards talking about totally unrelated things. So you want to stay focused, answer the question, don't make up your own questions, and just stay focused on what it's asking, right? Don't write for no reason on things that aren't related. When in doubt, keep writing. But if you can stay focused, stay focused. So now we're going to take a look at an example. The example comes from the 2024 AP Art History exam. So if you want a full breakdown on how they scored all the exams and the examples from students, you could take a look at the College Board website to see this one in further detail. With our example, we're going to break down how to read the tradition change FRQ, how to think about the questions, and how to answer these questions, as well as any trip-ups that might occur commonly with answering tradition and change. So here we have our example, and right off the bat, we see the image on the left here that is from the 250. But don't worry if you're like, oh my God, I don't even remember this. This was homework in the winter packet. Oh God. It's going to give you the identification information. So right away, that first paragraph says the work shown is the black on black ceramic vessel created by Pueblo artists Maria Martinez and Julian Martinez in San Ildefonso, Pueblo, New Mexico during the mid-20th century CE. It's giving us the IDs. With those IDs, that is your hints for answering the question. So if you're like, whoa, I don't remember anything about this piece, not even the name, hey, now you know it's a ceramic vessel, you know it's Puebloan, you know who the artists are, you know it's from mid-20th century. That's a lot of information it's giving you. And the fact New Mexico, like tons and tons and tons of stuff. Use that and use the image, and you could guess your way through it if you don't know it. And the best thing is that it usually starts with kind of a lead-in question, usually focused on visuals, could be totally different. It's always who knows with FRQs. But in general, you have 2 points in the beginning before you talk about tradition and change. So first 2 points here, describe 2 materials and or techniques used in the creation of the Martinez black and black vessel. Material and or techniques. That is a visual thing, but you do have to make sure you're responding about materials and or techniques. Then we get into our tradition change. Using specific visual or contextual evidence, explain how the work shown demonstrates continuity with earlier Pueblo artistic traditions. So this question, it's saying continuity, that's tradition, with early Puebloan artistic tradition. So that's the context. It's talking about Puebloan art, not Spanish art, not in general American art, not ceramic art. It's talking about Puebloan. So that gives us our focus. After you talk about the tradition, the next question says, using specific visual or contextual evidence, explain how the work shown demonstrates change from earlier Pueblo artistic traditions. These two questions are usually the same on all the tradition change FRQs. It says continuity, it says change, it gives context to the time period or culture. So continuity of Puebloan artistic traditions, change from earlier Puebloan artistic traditions. Even if you don't know Puebloan artistic traditions, you could still kind of think about the large scale, like what's happening in the world, or just look at the piece and sort of guess. The last thing is typically more context heavy and more about the artwork. So usually this point you kind of have to know the piece to get it. But you can also like put on your invisible beret, pretend you're in a museum, and make something up. So the last question here says, using specific contextual evidence, explain why Maria Martinez and Julian Martinez chose either to reference or to depart from earlier Puebloan artistic traditions. This last point just says why. Why tradition or why change? Back it up. So again, this is kind of the same format for the tradition change FRQ. It gives you identification for you to use as a hint. It asks you something more visual focus, then it says tradition, then it says change, and then it usually says why. So to break down how to answer it, with tasks 1 and 2, in this case, it says to describe 2 materials and or techniques. Materials means media, right? Technique is going to refer to how it's being made. Those are pretty easy questions when we're looking at a ceramic vessel and it's told us it's a ceramic vessel. But even if it's not, like that, you can still use the visuals, use the picture to help guess on how it could be made. So it has to be 2 different materials or 2 different techniques, or 1 material, 1 technique. They have to be different. You can't talk about it being clay and then you talk about it's dark clay. I don't know. So you want them to be separate. So here I wrote 1 material, sentence starter, the artwork uses is ceramic clay to create the form. The clay is used to sculpt the vessel and is fired for longevity. So I wasn't confident about just saying ceramic clay, so I said that it's fired so it lasts longer, right? So it's clay that's fired is essentially my point. Boom, I got a point. Next thing I say is 1 technique is the use of burnishing the clay, which is the process of rubbing a smooth stone or similar object against the leather hard clay so that it becomes shiny. Now, technically, I probably could have gotten the point just by barely explaining the burnishing, but I wanted to make sure that my answer made sense and I was talking about that technique. So I said that it was ceramics material, burnishing technique. Below are a bunch of other options of things that people have said. Here, I'll move me out of the way. There you go. So now you can see work is earthenware, vessels decorated with abstract elements, there's registers organized, that's a technique, carefully planned patterns, the curves of the pot, the work was created using coiling, it's painted with slip, burnished, surface decoration, wood fired, adds manure to the process, reduced oxygen content to create the black color. All of those have to do with the media or the technique of the piece. So always take a look at that question. Next, we're looking at the continuity aspect. So again, it's continuity. In this case, Puebloan artistic traditions, not like ceramics. So again, pay attention to what it's asking. So what I decided to focus on was the design, because my assumption when I was looking at it is that they probably used abstract designs that referenced other Puebloan stuff because I'm like, oh no, I don't know Puebloan culture off the top of my head. What could I guess about it? Okay, maybe the motifs in general tend to be more cultural focused. I will use that. And I got it right. So I said the work shows continuity, sentence starter, because the design motifs on the vessel are similar to previous Puebloan designs, which use stylized floral motifs in geometric patterns. Don't mind the spelling, I rushed. So because I'm talking about designs, I added the element of what those designs were. Just saying that it has designs, probably not enough. I pushed it further by saying the floral motifs and geometric patterns. So I focused on a visual. Other options include the coiling, burnishing, decorating, slip fired, pit fired, all that kind of stuff, slipware. Ceramics is a communal activity. The process for making the ceramic vessels is a continuity. The design is based off of ancestral Puebloan stuff, so that's the contextual to what my visual was talking about. The shape of the pot is very Puebloan, so tons of different things where you can kind of guess, like, oh, I don't know, throw something out there, hope it lands. So you want to talk about things that carried over from the past. That's continuity. What is it upkeeping that is similar to the past? In this case, past Puebloan traditions. Next, the change is usually a little bit easier because the change is often why the piece is chosen for the 250. So, using specific visual or contextual evidence, explain how the work shown demonstrates change from earlier Puebloan artistic traditions. Once again, this is how it's different from the past, and in this case, how it's different from Puebloan tradition, right? So for me, I remembered the artist's signature being really important. And I remember, like, oh, that's part of why they chose this work to represent Puebloan art in this time period. Because, and here I'll start explaining my answer, I put the artwork demonstrates change, sentence starter, because of the inclusion of the artist's signature on the vessel. This was done to elevate Puebloan pottery as a fine art in the European and US art sphere and increase profit from the name recognition. I was probably fine just by saying the artist's signature was on the vessel and saying that they weren't typically on the vessels prior. That would have counted. I started going into the why already for my own brain. But again, just saying signature because that's, they didn't put signatures on their piece. That would be good points. Other examples are they're using new techniques such as the black, matte, shiny surface texture difference. The fact that the design is inspired by 20th century Art Deco. That the pot was seen as a luxury item instead of a utilitarian one. The involvement in her husband was very non-traditional because as a woman, she was traditionally responsible for the production. Any of those kind of contextual or visual things are about how this piece is different from the past. This is what makes her stand out. This is how we appreciate the art, is by what they did to change the game for other artists, right? So that also helps us lead into our last task point, which is usually the why. Why is the continuity or change important? Why did they make those decisions? Why is that something we focus on? Why did these changes happen if we don't have an artist? Like, why did a classical statue change into the Hellenistic style? So it's that deeper why, right? So the question says using specific contextual evidence, make sure you see what type of evidence it wants. Explain why Maria Martinez and Julian Martinez chose either to reference or to depart from earlier Puebloan artistic traditions. This is a why. It says explain. Explain means go deep. That means write a little bit more, but answer that prompt, right? So I'm using contextual evidence to explain why those decisions happened, and I'm being specific. I don't just say because they wanted to. I'm not saying because it was different, something that's flat. I really want to think about the why, those big questions, right? So I wrote Maria and Julian Martinez chose to depart from tradition. So I'm talking about the change to bring traditional Puebloan art to the mainstream fine art world by using, so I explain it as a concept, now I'm backing it up with the contextual evidence. By using the low contrast black on black technique, the artist captured interest beyond utilitarian pottery. Now I knew that was too visual, so I shifted. Maria used their fame to teach others in the community to use the same technique and signed their names on others' pieces to increase profit for the community. So I'm hitting a lot of areas. I'm talking about the elevation to fine art. I'm talking about the luxury instead of utilitarian. I'm talking about the communal aspect, but I'm all focused on how it's changing from the past in order to elevate Puebloan art and make money. Could this be worded better? Yes, absolutely. But I was trying to replicate 15 minutes of writing. So focus on those whys and explain yourself. Don't let the AP reader have to guess what you were thinking, because they ain't. They are going to look at what you write, not what you were thinking while you wrote, if that makes sense. So again, pretend like I'm a baby dum-dum that I don't know anything and I need to be taught all art things. I don't even know what a line is. You want to explain it in depth enough that the reader knows exactly what you're saying. There's no fill in the blank. You got it. Now that sounds like a lot, but really you're just talking about how this piece is same as the past, different from the past. Focus on that part of it and then answer the prompt as well. Don't get lost in the sauce of this FRQ because it sounds complicated, but really it's about how it's upholding traditions, how it's breaking traditions, why is it doing it? Those 3 key ideas. Yap about those. Just keep talking about what you remember. The only way to get a 0 on an FRQ is to not answer, like guaranteed, right? If you make something up, just do it with confidence. You're going to be totally fine. Don't spend forever on it. 15 minutes. It's a short one, right? And it'll be your last FRQ. Don't wimp out if you're going in order. You could always go back. When you're done and you still have time, go back to your previous FRQs. See if you remember anything else. Anything you type or write is valid. So make sure that you're getting as much as you can. Just yap, yap, yap. And then hopefully you get as many points to get that at least 3 or higher on the AP exam. Don't give up, just keep writing, and you guys are going to be fine. Even if you're not confident, pretend you're confident. I'm confident in you, so let yourself be confident in yourself. All right, guys, good luck with continuity change and good luck with the AP Art History exam.